We start things with what else, Ev? My partner on Warriors this week, Golden State Warrior basketball dominating the calendar year-round, the latest being one Klay Thompson. Your initial thoughts?
Well, first of all, it's really glad to have you. I'm really glad to have you back in the saddle, Dan, because, I don't know, we get to do a little switcheroo every once in a while Saturday. Got to keep things fresh, got to keep people on their toes, and I feel like that's exactly what Klay Thompson's doing. He's trying to keep people on their toes by unfollowing the Warriors, by it also appears removing pictures involving the Golden State Warriors for the last couple of seasons from his IG, and I also think it's a perfect place to start, Dan, because you are someone that is able to operate outside of the social media sphere. So I'm very curious what your thoughts are on this, because I know how I feel. I feel like it's either something that people perceive as being, I don't know, like a Gen Z move, or maybe it's strategic because this is what athletes do nowadays. But as somebody who I would like to think, and I believe kind of lives social media free, like, what do you think of when you hear an athlete saying, oh, I'm just going to unfollow the team that I've been following the last 12 years?
Well, I think it's what's trending right now in step one, to let the other team know, to throw that first shot across the bow that you're disgruntled, that it's now official. You're disgruntled with the team. But I'm going to turn things back on you because you live in this world. And what I want you to do for the audience and people like myself is to detail the thought process for somebody who is a millennial, a Gen Z, somebody who lives in that social media world with an Instagram account and everything that means in terms of what the message is blatantly, what the subtle message is. What is it that Klay Thompson is trying to reveal not only to the Golden State Warriors, but to everybody else out there that's listening?
Well, I do think it is a strategic move, and it's probably one also that he's discussed with his agent. Free agency's coming up. It's a couple weeks away. July 1st. Is that it's open season. Everybody gets to determine where they go, what they want to do. And it does feel like Klay Thompson hadn't necessarily had the ball in his court, right? All we've discussed this offseason is how many years for Klay, at what price tag, does he fit? Is he still a shooter at this caliber? Is he declining? Where is he going to go? What can he do? Who can he help? And now it feels like with this move, it kind of turns the ball back towards him. It gives him, I think, a little more leverage. And it also, I think, affirms what a lot of people had been feeling about Klay, which he was disgruntled. He wasn't happy. And so I think it's twofold. Number one, it's strategic because you can use it as leverage. You can use it as bargaining power in saying that I just want to let you guys know that I'm not necessarily fawning to be a Golden State Warrior. I want to be one, but I don't have to be one. And then secondarily, I also think it's kind of a Klay Thompson move. Like, who else on the Golden State Warriors would scrub their social media than Klay Thompson? Like, that to me does scream Klay, because we know he gets in his feelings a little bit from time to time. He's a very emotive person. He's very genuine. He feels down to earth. He feels like one of us, which is, I think, a big reason why people love Klay Thompson. But it also is very fitting that of the elder statesman on the team, I mean, Draymond didn't scrub his social media. I don't know if Steph ever would, but it feels like something that Klay Thompson would do.
Well, let me ask you this. In terms of level of importance, staying within that sphere of social media and specifically your Instagram account, in level of 10, it's imminent that he wants out. One being that, this isn't a big deal. It's just for, it's the middle of the summer and he's being Klay Thompson, and maybe he had a few fatties and he's sitting on his deck out in Tiburon and he's like, let me just mess with people. Again, for somebody who sort of lives much more closely in this world than do I.
Yeah. What
is the level of importance? How important should, say, Warrior fans, the Klay Thompson fans of the world this morning, what is the message that they should be reading into this? Is this Klay Thompson saying, I want out? Is this Klay Thompson just having fun at our expense? Just exactly gauge and take us through what it means to scrub your account in terms of this actually coming from push comes to shove and that he wants to go out. He wants out the door. What does this mean?
Well, I don't think many people have used social media scrubbing or unfollowing as an employment tactic, like as a business tactic. But I think a lot of people can relate to it from a relationship perspective. Maybe there's somebody that you used to be with or that, you're trying to get the attention of, And you can use social media just to let them know how you're feeling. It is a very Gen Z move. I don't even know if it's a millennial move because a lot of people out there wouldn't necessarily do that. But I think Dan, it's something like, all right, so if I'm, kind of going through some ups and downs with a certain person and I want to get their attention. And I know that there's somebody who pays attention to social media. I think the NBA is the most social media driven league, perhaps outside of the NFL, that we have. But one of the reasons why everybody's glued to the off season, I think more than any other major American sport, is because of moments like this. It's because there's drama, because there's certain, just breadcrumbs that you can follow to a place of, well, is Klay Thompson going to be here? Is he not? What I would say to Warriors fans is I don't think that this social media scrubbing affects his contract situation one iota. I think at the end of the day, Klay Thompson is going to decide if he wants to be a Golden State Warrior or not. This is just a reminder to me that, hey, if I want to leave, I can. And I don't have a problem doing it. But it doesn't mean that he wants to. Again, we saw Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. People have scrubbed their social media before and remained with their team. So does it affect the way that I look at Klay Thompson's future in Golden State? It doesn't change the fact that I do believe it's a 50-50 call right now, no matter what. Pre-social media, post-social media. But it does feel now like, Dan, as opposed to before, the ball is in his court a little bit more. And I feel like that's the message that he's trying to send. Like, I still have the power in this. I still am what people, want me to be, which is, a four-time champ, a Hall of Famer. I still am that guy. And I just feel like it's kind of a subtle reminder of it. All
right, so you asked me how I perceive all this social media and somebody scrubbing their account for a guy that typically doesn't live in that space. I think it's a really weenie move. Not on the part of just specifically Klay Thompson, because I understand Klay is just, and hey, listen, it might have been one of his agents blowing into his ear. But this is how things are done in professional sports these days. I don't know that it necessarily means anything. Kyler Murray scrubbed his account. Remember
exactly.
That? I think it's just one of those where you're just letting people know. It's sort of the first, it's almost as though it's the first step in negotiations. You mentioned Deebo Samuel. A.J. Brown scrubbed his account. He went back to Philadelphia, signed a new deal. It's almost as though it's the first ploy. Mm-hmm. It's the first move in the chess game. Like, okay, let's move our pawn. Let's get this thing going. Let's let them know we're dissatisfied. More importantly, let's make this a little bit public and let everybody else out there know, the unwashed masses, that I'm unhappy and or read between the lines that the Golden State Warriors are not offering me a contract or they're not negotiating in good faith. However it is that you want to perceive that. But to me, in 2024, I don't like it. It's ridiculous. It's a weenie move in order to handling your business, but I understand it's the way things are done these days. To me, it's just the first step of what is going to be now the ongoing bartering and the back and forth between the two. Here's the one thing that I think everybody would like to see, hopefully is avoided and is avoidable, and you don't want this to get ugly. You don't want Klay scrubbing things and this to be a back and forth where Klay's like, screw you, and the Warriors are like, you know what, Klay, thank you so much. And this becomes one of those, I'm out of town, and let me just go anywhere else because the Golden State Warriors did me wrong. And I think sort of the initial knee-jerk reaction is that Klay Thompson's unhappy and he wants out. That's not the way this thing should end. Okay, even if he goes to another team, which I think there's a strong, strong possibility.
Definitely.
You want that to be as amicable as possible. 4 titles. He's been with one team since 2011 when he joined the squad. It's one of the more epic runs of all time in terms of the foundation. You don't want this thing to go down this road.
Well, and that's why, to your point, Dan, I don't think Klay is feeling the love. Like, I don't think that he's feeling the love that he believes that he deserves, because he is a 4-time champ, because he is a future Hall of Famer. And generally those players are taken care of. But I'm kind of with the 408 here, John from San Jose on the Xfinity Mobile text line. It is childish. It's an immature move that is also a shot across the bow.
Yeah.
It's a harmless shot across the bow, but that doesn't mean that it isn't childish. It doesn't mean that it isn't immature, especially for somebody who's 34 going on 35 years old.
And pulling down $43 million a year.
I mean, seriously. Yes, you're going to have to take a step back financially. Yes, you're probably going to have to take a step back as far as your role. These are all things that Klay Thompson's been wrestling with for the last 2 years since he returned from 2 horrific injuries. That's not going to change. And so this tactic to me is, in one sense, harmless because I don't think it affects his contract situation. But I think it's also something that he's letting us know that he doesn't necessarily need Golden State. I think he wants to be needed, or he wants to feel needed, and he's not feeling like it right now.
But isn't this the first sign and the most blatant and obvious omen that he does need the Golden State Warriors? Usually, if you're secure, you don't do things like this. To me, this is the biggest sign of insecurity, trying to prove to people that I don't need the Golden State Warriors, where we all know at the end of the day that you don't want to leave Tiburon. You don't want to leave Steph. You don't want to leave the people that you know in this area. You sure as hell don't want to go to Orlando and be in that part of the world, right? We've talked about that. I don't even think he wants to go to Philadelphia. You get to a certain point in your life where as an NBA player where you've made your money and you got the bag a couple of times over, it becomes a matter of quality of life. Just like I don't think LeBron James is ever leaving L.A., right? He's got everything in L.A., especially when you talk about Hollywood.
Don't let the Suns get brawny, Dan. Don't let the Suns get brawny.
By the way, that draft is coming up, and I don't know where I'll be, but I'll make sure as hell to contact you when Bronny goes in that second round to somebody.
So the Golden State Warriors.
So I think that Klay Thompson is showing that, to me, if you're just to look a little further than just this obvious, again, I agree with the text line that this is a childish move. Klay should be above this. I mean, for the younger players that are looking to get that first contract.
Though? Like, why?
I mean, if you're A.J. Brown, you're Kyler Murray, you're still young, and you still want to get that first deal, he's made his money. He's a little older. It's the Warriors. You've won titles with these guys. You know everybody in the front office. Like, this is, go call up Kerr. Just tell somebody that you're unhappy. I think Klay should be above this. This is something that, yeah, you would see another player who's maybe in his early 20s that's looking for his first big contract, that knows this is part of the negotiating ploy. I just like to think that maybe if this is Jordan Poole or if this is a younger player with the Golden State Warriors, that they do this. But Klay Thompson, Steph, Draymond, Looney, come on, guys. Aren't we above the fray a little bit?
I mean, you would hope so. But, Klay is... This is a quintessential Klay Thompson move, I believe. Like, I would not put scrubbing social media, even before it happened, above Klay Thompson, because that's kind of the person, like, he doesn't speak publicly. He doesn't go out and create firestorms publicly. He's a passive-aggressive dude.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the guy that is going to take shots at, a journalist who comes at him with a certain tone, who, he doesn't really feel like his... It is all, I feel like it's seriously, it depends on the day with Klay Thompson. He might wake up today and regret completely scrubbing his social media, but he woke up yesterday and felt like he was going to do it.
Yeah.
Or maybe he was on his deck in Tiburon, like you're talking about, smoking a J, thinking about life and going, it'll be kind of funny.
Yeah.
If I just unfollow the Golden State Warriors, take down these photos, maybe he also wanted to reorganize his feed. I don't know. Maybe he didn't want to see enough. Maybe he didn't want to see Golden State Warriors, associated images or videos or reels on his timeline. I mean, maybe he was trying to reorder his social media engagement. I don't know. Klay Thompson is trying to guess what Klay is going to do or the reaction that he's going to have to perceived slights. To me, it's just. It's an activity that's going to lead you nowhere, or it's going to lead you in circles. And I think Klay right here, it feels wrong. Like, Klay Thompson, come on, man. Like, come on. I'm not a fan.
Is your ire directed at Klay Thompson or the Warriors, or where are you at?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
A little bit of both. I mean, it always takes two to tango. You're right. Klay should be above this, but every time it feels like he does something, he just reminds us that he's still got a little immaturity about him. Like, again, this is an immature move. People have used it before as a business tactic, as a negotiating strategy. That doesn't make it not childish.
Yeah.
So, do I think it impacts the contract negotiations? Not necessarily. But I also think he's trying to let other teams know, too, that I'm not married to the Warriors. Again, if he's going to test free agency, and I think he is, this is as harmless of a message as you can send that I'm open to all ears. Like, I'm open to all contracts. I'm open to all negotiations. It's not just me in Golden State.
I think there's a tremendous sense of insecurity when it comes to Klay Thompson. And you just see that borne out through his play. Remember he got into that little scuffle with Devin Booker and had to remind everybody I've won 4 titles. How often does he say that? Jaden McDaniels, he got into it with the player from Minnesota early this year, actually got tossed from that game. And he always talks about, I'm the best. I'm one of the best. And he has to remind people how many titles he's won. He's the one guy in the Golden State Warriors that's always holding up the 4 rings or the 4 fingers. It's like, we know, man. And usually if you're secure, you don't have to tell anybody that. We know you're one of the best shooters. But it just seems as though he's having a hard time graduating into that space in life where you have to recognize I'm no longer that guy. I'm a little bit older, and that I can suddenly see the finish line of my career. And some guys are very gracious when they do that, and they know how to go out. He still thinks he's 27 years of age. And there's a level, I think, of high insecurity when it comes to Klay Thompson, and this is just another part of that. And I also think that Klay Thompson, he just gets down in the weeds, and he almost is Kevin Durant-esque, where he's willing to, if you disrespect him, regardless of who you are, he will, he'll go back and forth with you instead of just saying, or at least having the inner confidence of recognizing I'm one of the best guys. I'm a future Hall of Famer, one of the best players to ever do this. Arguably the greatest shooter that's ever lived. I got 4 titles. The majority, 98% of these coconuts playing are never going to sniff 2 of these things, and just be good with that and have that internal confidence as you go about your daily life. But that's not who he is. He's somebody that has to remind you. He's somebody that if you disrespect him, he has to tell you how many titles he's won and how good of a shooter he is. There's always been sort of this overt sort of sense of insecurity when it comes to Klay Thompson. And I think this is just another very obvious example of that. When it comes to the Golden State Warriors, maybe this is revealing that there has been another initial sort of offering on the part of the Warriors, that they took down the 24 that was reported a year ago, 24 per, and they're like, listen, we're now at about 18 to 20. I don't know. We're reading into this, and maybe this is what he wanted us to do. But if you're the Golden State Warriors, you hope that this doesn't get ugly. But Klay's got to understand that we're at a point now with you being 34, you're going to be 35 next year, that we can't obviously give you 43 and we can't give you 30 and we can't give you the 24 that reportedly you were offered during last offseason, that you're somewhere around 18 to 20. And if you can't come to grips with that, if you can't get your arms around that, then we do have to part ways. The Golden State Warriors cannot buckle whatsoever. Like, their mindset has to be, we have got to lower this payroll. And Klay Thompson is no longer the same player. We can detail that. I've done this for months now. He's no longer the same two-way player. He's soon to be 35, and this is the offer regardless of what it is that you're doing on social media.
I also think the reaction from fans is interesting, too. And if you have an interpretation of it, if you have a thought on it, we do want to hear from you, 888-957-9570, because I also think one part of it, too, is perhaps Klay Thompson wanting to put a feel out of, well, how much love is there in the Bay for me? How much love out there is there for me in, say, Orlando or Philadelphia or whatever team he's been connected to as a potential free agent destination? Because I also think the reaction is something he's trying to find out. He's trying to see it. It felt like Klay Thompson was perhaps, Curry's in a different plane, but might have been the most universally beloved Golden State Warrior during their dynastic run, pre-injury. Because of what you're talking about, Dan. It always felt like to me, yes, Klay Thompson had some passive aggression to him. Yes, he was a guy that was, I think, a little out of the limelight. But he always felt secure. Like, he always seemed very secure to me. One lasting image I'll always have of Klay Thompson is during I forget, it was the 2015 or 16 finals, but Curry's talking to LeBron and they're chit-chatting, and Klay Thompson is just the one walking through the middle and say, just play ball. Like, just play ball, man. Like, stop talking, just play ball. This is not Klay Thompson just playing ball. Like, this is Klay Thompson trying to do something more. And it feels like he's been searching for something since he got those injuries that took away 2 years of his prime and affected the rest of his career. It feels like he's been fighting Father Time since he returned. And I don't understand why, Dan, because the first year he came back, he won a championship. And he still feels like he has to throw it in people's faces like Devin Booker. Or one of the first things that he said at the podium after winning a championship.
He went after Memphis.
He went after, I think, Jaren Jackson Jr. I can't wait to call that kid a bum. Like, why is your mind there? You're on top of the world.
Perfect example.
You're on top of the world, man. So this does align, again, that's why I think it's a quintessential Klay Thompson move. It does align with what we've seen the past 2 seasons. And in one breath, I can feel like I'm not surprised because when I heard about it yesterday, me and Kay were out at the cafeteria having a pop. And I see it come through my timeline. I'm like, wow, Klay Thompson just scrubbed his social media. And Ken, you were actually on the air when it happened. Like you guys discussed it yesterday. I'm just curious what you thought, like your initial reaction to when you see the notification from our Twitter account that goes out that says Klay Thompson has unfollowed the Golden State Warriors.
I mean, the first thought that runs through your mind is like, okay, what are you saying to us? Like, what is he saying right now? And we started checking to see if he started unfollowing started following, I should say, other sports teams like the 76ers, the Orlando Magic. He's not following those teams, but yeah, it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, now we were talking about Brock Purdy for a second, and it's like, nope, we got to pivot just to this. Forget Brock Purdy, forget Trevor Lawrence, forget the money.
Yeah,
we got to talk about Klay Thompson. It kind of just like was a little bit of a not a gut punch, but just like a reality check. Like, oh, he wants to get serious now.
Yeah.
He's getting serious.
You know what would be the ultimate Klay Thompson move is if he scrubbed the Golden State Warriors and just randomly, it has nothing to do with anything, but then just opened up an OnlyFans account. Like, what's going on here? Like, this is making no sense. Here's what I would say, and this should not be coming from me. The last guy, not only in this room, but in this planet that's about to say what it is that I'm about to say, I'm the last guy who should be delivering this message. But you know what? Part of that insecurity, Klay Thompson, my man, you got all the money in the world. You're a good-looking dude. Go get married, start a family. It's the same thing with Aaron Rodgers who gets into the silly stuff. It's the same thing with Kevin Durant. Redirect that energy somewhere else so you can put life in its proper perspective so that everything isn't weighed in on social media and, oh, the Warriors disrespected me. If you have something else in your life, that structure, whether it's a family and a wife, you can see things sort of properly through a different lens. And I think that lens, part of what it is that we're seeing with Klay Thompson. I hate to go down that road and get into the man's personal life, but I can't help but sort of connect the dots when you see Aaron Rodgers, also a single guy with all the money in the world, do similar type things. Kevin Durant is also a single guy with all the money in the world that also gets into sort of this back and forth and sort of an immature, childish behavior. I don't know. I think that there's something there. Again, I'm the last guy that should be providing that sort of advice to anyone, but this speaks more about the issues with the Golden State Warriors, a contract, free agency. It has more to do with, I think, Klay Thompson, a level of insecurity and where he's at in life that he has to do something like this. Is sort of my bigger takeaway in all of this.
Well, first of all, shout out to Joe Spadoni, who just texted, I believe, from the 831. My wife scrubbed me off her social media when I forgot her birthday. I mean, that is a shot. And shout out to the great Jade Spadoni.
Wow, dude.
That's pretty funny, actually. So, I mean, it could be Klay having fun. Where I want to go next in the next part of this, I do think it takes us into a little bit the relationship between the Warriors and Klay Thompson. Because I believe that it's been slowly eroding since he feels like he got lowballed last offseason with a 2-year, $48 million contract extension. That's clearly not what he wants. That clearly isn't what he's wanted all year. And I feel like this is kind of a little bit of a peek behind the curtain as to what the real root of the problem is when it comes to Klay and the Warriors.